The call came in at 2:47 a.m, the kind of hour when most of the world is unconscious dreaming or trying not to dream. Dispatch picked up the line. A woman's voice, distorted, frantic, barely intelligible, spoke 5 words before the line went dead. They're not where they should. The trace was weak. A prepaid burner. But the last ping came from somewhere in rural West Virginia, just outside of Mingo Hollow, a stretch of road so unremarkable it wasn't even paved. The kind of place GPS usually glitches out. Deputy Colin Wexler was first on the scene. The morning fog hung low like a secret, and the hills crouched over the town like sentinels with long memories. He drove slow, the GPS rerouted twice. Each time he circled back, certain he'd been here before. Then, without warning, the screen on his cruiser's dash froze. A small blue dot blinked in the centre. Arrived, the robotic voice said, but there was nothing here. No house, no mailbox, no sign of human presence at all. Just an open field rimmed by trees so dense they seemed to drink the light. The air smelled like rust and pine needles. But something felt off. The silence wasn't empty. It was full. Too full. Then a flicker. In the clearing ahead, something metallic caught the weak beam of his headlights. Wexler squinted, stepped out of the car, hand resting on the grip of his holstered weapon. He crossed the grass in slow, deliberate steps. Every sound, the crunch of gravel, the breeze shifting the trees felt amplified. It was a car. Silver Toyota Corolla, doors closed, engine cold. No plates. Inside, 2 phones, both powered off, 1 purse, 1 shoe, no people. The driver's seat was pushed far forward, too far for an adult male. There were scratch marks on the inside of the passenger side window. Faint. Desperate. Wexler's breath fogged in front of him. His heart pounded not in fear, but in some primal recognition. Someone had been here, and someone had wanted out. Back at the station, the VIN revealed the car was registered to a Gillian Hartwell, a 27-year-old nurse from Roanoke, Virginia. She'd not been reported missing. Not yet. But a quick search turned up her Instagram. The last post was 6 hours ago, a selfie in front of a convenience store geotagged 2 hours west. The caption read, "Almost there. This GPS is taking me through the middle of nowhere, LOL." And that was it. She never posted again. Wexler requested drones, dogs, anything. But Mingo Hollow didn't have resources for an actual search party. By 10 a.m, a state trooper named Alex Benton had joined him. Together they traced what few signs they could from the car, a few footprints, a torn piece of jacket snagged on a low branch, a trail of disturbed underbrush that vanished just 20 feet in. They followed the GPS logs. Something wasn't adding up. The coordinates didn't match any known road, not even a logging trail. It led inward, through terrain that didn't exist on the state's official maps. "You ever seen this before?" Benton asked, holding up his phone. The GPS screen shimmered slightly like heat mirage. The trail continued through impossible turns, tight spirals, narrow zigzags until it stopped at a single pinpoint on the map. But when they got there, there was nothing. Just trees. And beneath them a sinkhole 20 feet wide, jagged edges like something had clawed its way out rather than in. Wexler crouched by the edge. The soil was loose, the air rising from it warm and humid, smelling faintly of rot. He dropped a flare. It fell further than it should have. The light kept going and going, until it hit something metallic. A brief flash of silver, a corner. It looked like a stair. Buried! Benton leaned in to look and froze. In the dirt, just a few inches from his boots, a small pink object jutted out of the soil. He knelt, brushed it clean. A phone, still powered on. Screen cracked. Incoming call notification frozen on the lock screen. Mom. The timestamp 2:47 a.m. Same time as the call that came into dispatch. Wexler looked at the name again, and then slowly the screen flickered. For just a second. A glitch or a reflection? No, it was a face. Blurry, half-lit, mouth open in a silent scream. Then it vanished, and the phone went dead. Wexler turned the phone over in his hand as if weight alone might yield a clue. Its warmth had already faded, and the cracked screen reflected his drawn face in fractured pieces. Benton remained crouched by the edge of the sinkhole, transfixed by the stare they'd glimpsed. "You saw that, right?" Wexler asked. Benton didn't answer right away. Then he stood slowly and muttered, "It's not supposed to be there." They marked the location and radioed for backup. But again, the hollow failed them. Static snarled through their radios. Cell service disappeared entirely. The GPS, when reopened, showed them spinning in place, turning circles in a spot where no signal should even reach. They were offline. The sun hung low, turning the treetops blood orange. Neither man voiced the thought we shouldn't still be here. But they stayed. Because whatever this place was, someone had gone missing inside it. And they weren't the first. Wexler remembered a local legend he'd heard from his grandfather, a tale told in whispers about an old road that sometimes opened when the forest grew quiet, a path that led to nowhere. And once in 1976, a man named Clyde Kinley was found wandering barefoot near this very spot, speaking in tongues, clothes shredded, fingernails torn off entirely. He died 2 days later in a padded room. Wexler had always assumed it was a ghost story. Now he wasn't sure. They returned to the cruiser, driving in near silence, the tyres crackling over gravel and leaves. But again the GPS chirped. "In 400 feet, turn left." Wexler looked out the window. There was no left. Just trees. But the steering wheel shifted slightly beneath his hands. The car veered subtly, as if being pulled. Benton grabbed the dash. "Cut it," he said sharply. Wexler slammed the brakes. They both sat there breathing. Then Benton reached into the glove compartment, pulled out an emergency flare and lit it. The red glow danced on the windshield. "Let's go back," Benton said. "On foot. That stair. If it's real, we dig." And so they did. Armed with only 2 flashlights and a folding shovel, they hiked back to the sinkhole under moonlight. Something about it had changed. The air now felt thinner, cooler, as if something beneath the ground had exhaled. The soil gave way easily, as if something had once been buried here and then unburied recently. Within minutes they uncovered the edge of the stair, metal oxidized, bolted to a concrete wall. It wasn't natural. It wasn't old. It looked like part of a bunker. A door was set into the earth beside it. Heavy rusted with a faded military insignia, a triangle within a circle partially scraped away. No lock, just a handle. Wexler looked to Benton. "You want to open it? Do we have a choice?" The door groaned as it opened, revealing a stairwell descending into darkness. The smell that greeted them was overwhelming stale air, wet concrete, and the faintest trace of something sweet and spoiled. They stepped inside. The first level was a narrow corridor lined with concrete walls and empty hooks, as though once used to store coats or bags. The floor sloped slightly downward, and the walls dripped with condensation. Wexler's flashlight caught something written in black marker near the top of the stairwell wall. "Follow only if you have nothing to lose." Further down, another scrawl. "The map lies." And then another, "I was led here too." The hallway ended in a locked door. Benton jimmied it open with a crowbar. What lay beyond was a room square, windowless and tiled. In the centre stood a steel gurney. On it, strapped with cracked leather restraints, was a decomposing body. The decay was advanced, but something about the position, hands folded over chest, eyes wide open, mouth agape, was hauntingly deliberate. The body had been posed. Next to it sat a clipboard almost untouched by rot. Name Gillian Hartwell. Status subject terminated. Reason non-compliance. Benton backed away. "This is a government facility," he whispered. Or it was. Wexler opened a drawer beside the gurney. Inside there was a stack of Polaroids. Most were dark, smudged, unrecognisable. But one showed Gillian alive. She was in the same room, same gurney. Her face was twisted in a silent scream. A hand, gloved and pale, hovered above her face just out of frame. On the back of the photo, written in red ink, "She didn't want to go further. Will you?" Behind them a noise, a soft dragging step, something moving up the stairwell. They froze. And then the door they'd come through slowly began to close. Benton lunged toward it. Too late. It slammed shut and the lights above flickered. Then died. They were locked in, and someone or something was no longer on the other side. It was inside. The blackness in the room was total. A kind of darkness that pressed against the eyes where not even outlines moved. No shapes, no edges. Just the feeling of vast concrete and breath too loud in one's ears. Wexler turned slowly, raising his flashlight. The beam flickered for a split second before stabilizing. They were alone, or they had been. But now the air was different, charged like static before a lightning strike. Something had changed in the room the moment that door closed. It wasn't just sealed, they were sealed in with it. Benton whispered something's breathing. Wexler paused. He heard it too. A slow, rhythmic draw and release, not in sync with either of their own chests. From the far corner beyond the reach of their lights, Benton's flashlight trembled in his grip. There he muttered, stepping forward. They moved cautiously toward the gurney again, past Gillian Hartwell's contorted body. The sound grew louder, not approaching, not retreating, just present. Like the room itself had lungs. Then a second sound. Metal dragging on concrete. They froze. Wexler swung his light toward the far wall and caught it. Just for a breath of a second, a figure, gaunt, bent, moving low to the ground like it was broken in half but hadn't stopped crawling. Its hands left long, dark streaks across the floor. Its head turned toward the light. No eyes, just a wide skin-split mouth. Then it scuttled sideways into the shadows. Benton nearly dropped the flashlight. What the hell was that? Not waiting to find out, Wexler snapped. They turned back to the sealed door concrete steel-bolted from the outside. No lock, no handle, just smooth surface and silence now. The breathing had stopped, but only because something else had started. Tapping. On the walls, on the ceiling, on the floor. Not random rhythmic. A pattern, like code, like it wanted to be heard, understood. Morse. No, not Morse. It was spelling something. Counting. Tap, pause, tap, 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 tap. It reached 10, then began again. And again. Each round faster, louder. Like it was excited. Benton slammed his hand on the wall. We're getting out. They turned back toward the hall they came from, but a new door had appeared. Not opened appeared. A rusted rectangle carved directly into the concrete. Benton reached for the handle. Don't, Wexler warned. But it was too late. Benton opened it. On the other side, a spiral staircase descending into thick humming black. The air rising from it was warm and wet, like breath through a throat. Wexler glanced back at the gurney. The body was gone. Gillian Hartwell missing again. Benton didn't speak. He simply descended each step, swallowed by shadow. Wexler followed. The walls narrowed as they went lower. The steps became uneven. Carved, not poured, then natural. Cavestone. Dripping water. The artificial bunker had transitioned into something much older, much deeper. Something beneath the structure itself. The air grew colder again, heavy with mould and rust. Eventually they reached a corridor. It stretched out ahead like a tunnel, dirt-lined, roofed in warped wooden planks, as if it had been built in panic rather than planning. Emergency lighting flickered along the ceiling, old fluorescent tubes barely alive. At the end of the hall a door stood slightly ajar. Something whispered from behind it. Not a voice. A recording. They approached carefully. Inside the room looked like a 1960s listening post. Switchboards. Reel-to-reel machines. Dust layered over every surface. But one machine still whirred softly as reels spinning, though no power fed it. A speaker on the wall crackled to life. Subject 4 entered the corridor at 0248. GPS response nominal. Civilian unaware. Civilians always unaware. Then another voice female, barely audible, whispering under the static. Please don't let them put me back. Please. They said it wasn't real, but I saw it. I saw where the coordinates go. I saw the room that thinks. Wexler stepped back. His flashlight landed on a large map pinned to the far wall. Dozens of pins, red string, names, photos. Gillian Hartwell's was one of them. So was Clyde Kinley, the man who died decades ago. And at the centre, circled in red ink, the coordinates from the GPS. A single caption beneath it. 0, do not re-enter. Benton reached toward a file cabinet and slid it open. Inside, folders stamped classified. But only one file was fresh. Inside, a picture. A still from a security camera. It showed Wexler and Benton standing in the very room they now stood in. Only it was time-stamped 3 days ahead, and they weren't alone in the picture. Standing behind them in the frame, barely visible eyes, hollow mouth yawning open, was the thing from the bunker. The next folder was labelled simply, Extraction, Wexler, J. Benton. Benton looked at Wexler pale. They knew we were coming. Wexler didn't answer, because he saw something behind Benton. The camera in the corner of the room had just shifted. It was now pointed directly at them. And from the speaker on the wall a new voicemail distorted deeper than the rest. Begin observation, Phase 2 has arrived. Wexler's skin crawled. He stepped back from the camera's lens as if it could reach through the glass and touch him. Benton was frozen, still holding the folder marked Extraction. His jaw clenched so tightly it clicked. The recording hissed again. Phase 2 initiated, monitor cognitive decay. Subject Wexler displays resistance. Benton compliant. Note, do not engage until stabilization. Wexler looked at Benton. What the hell does that mean, cognitive decay? Benton didn't respond. Benton. Still nothing. His partner's eyes were fixed on something across the room. Something Wexler hadn't noticed yet. Slowly, Wexler followed his gaze. On the far wall, a mirror. Large, too clean. No dust, no fog. Just a smooth pane of glass embedded into the concrete like a one-way window in an interrogation room. And in the reflection they were not alone. Benton's lips parted, his breath caught. Behind them, standing so close the backs of their jackets brushed its ribs, was a figure tall naked bones wrapped in tight wet flesh. Its face was wrong, too symmetrical. No eyes, just skin stretched smooth where features should have been. It didn't move. It just watched. And in the mirror they saw it slowly raise one finger and place it where its lips might have been. Shh! Then it vanished. They spun. Nothing. The room was empty again. Benton whispered, "It's not watching us through the camera. It's watching us through the mirror." Wexler's heart pounded like a war drum. He turned to the door, but it was gone. No frame, no seams. Only wall. The only exit now was the mirror, or what was behind it. "We're not in the bunker anymore," Wexler said. "We're somewhere else. Some kind of layer under it. Below the map, below the ground, below whatever they were tracking." Benton backed away from the mirror, but the image inside didn't match. Their reflections were still staring straight ahead, not moving. Still standing. Still afraid. Still being watched. "We need to break it," Benton said. He grabbed a chair and swung. Glass cracked but didn't shatter. Again. The crack spread like a web, but still the mirror held. Until the third swing, with a low wet shatter, the mirror collapsed inward. Not outward, inward, as if it led to a void behind. But there was no wall behind it. Only another room, darker, older. The light from their flashlights barely penetrated it. Wexler stepped through. The air inside was immediately colder. The floor sloped again, and this time the hallway was lined with doors. Dozens of them, each identical. Steel bolted, no handles on the inside, Sells Wexler whispered. Each one had a name. Each name was crossed out, except the last. Hartwell J. The door was still shut, untouched. And it was humming. Wexler placed his ear to the cold steel. Inside something whispered. A voice female, faint, repeating a phrase over and over. They said, "Don't follow the GPS. They said, don't follow the GPS." Wexler turned the wheel lock on the door. The bolt clanked heavy. The door creaked open. And inside, nothing. The room was empty, except for a puddle. Thick, dark, shimmering like oil. And in the centre of it a single shoe. The same one Wexler had seen in the car at Mingo Hollow. Then a sound. The GPS. From inside the cell. Wexler stepped forward. The puddle rippled. And the GPS voice spoke tinny and wrong. "Rerouting. Continue straight. Turn left in 500 feet. Then static. The puddle shimmered again, and something moved beneath it. A shape twisting faceless, rising just beneath the surface. Benton yanked Wexler back. The puddle erupted upward like a breath held too long. Black liquid sprayed the ceiling. It reeked of copper and wet soil. And then it settled. Still again. Wexler turned to flee, but now the door was closed again, from the outside. And this time the wheel wouldn't budge. They were trapped. Lights began to flicker in the hallway, one by one, moving toward them. Not above them on the floor. A new corridor began to illuminate itself with those blinking emergency lights. Not leading out, leading deeper. The GPS buzzed in Wexler's pocket again. He didn't remember putting it there. He took it out. It displayed a single word. Down. Benton's voice broke through the silence, shaking. "Wexler, what if this isn't a facility? What is it then?" Benton looked at the puddle, at the cell doors, at the blinking lights that now pulsed like a pulse. He whispered, "What if it's a trap made out of a signal?" They moved. Not because they wanted to, but because the blinking floor lights left no other choice. One by one they illuminated the path ahead, always just 10 feet at a time, just enough to lure them forward. Behind them the corridor sank into black. Each time they stopped, the last lit tile dimmed. There was no going back. The GPS in Wexler's pocket pulsed again. No voice this time, just a vibration, like a heartbeat. He looked down at the screen. Destination arrived. And beneath that, open file. He tapped the screen once. The display went white, then began showing still images, one after another. First the two of them in the cell corridor captured just seconds ago, but from a high angle as though from a ceiling camera that wasn't there. Next, Gillian Hartwell bound to the gurney, eyes open, screaming. Then a new image. Wexler's home, his wife asleep on the couch, the TV still playing. The photo was time-stamped 4 hours ago. He didn't speak, just turned the device toward Benton. Benton swallowed hard. They're not tracking us. They're anticipating us. Another hallway opened, wider this time. At the end, a vault-style door, massive round cold steel. Its face marked only with a number, 0. It opened before they touched it. Inside was a chamber, circular, lined with monitors, hundreds of them. Every screen showed a different person. Some sitting in cars, some walking in cities, some sleeping. All unaware they were being watched. All of them had one thing in common. They were following a GPS route. Each screen had a tag, name, route ID, status. Some read in transit, others extracted, and many more lost signal. In the centre of the chamber was a chair, and in that chair, a body. But it wasn't dead. Its chest rose and fell, shallow but steady. Its skin was pale translucent, thin wires threaded into its temples and arms, disappearing into the ceiling above. Its eyes were open, but they were grey, clouded. The face was familiar. Too familiar. It was Benton. Benton staggered back, nearly falling. No, that's not. But Wexler didn't answer. He was looking at one of the monitors. It showed himself, standing in the room, looking at Benton. From an impossible angle, above, behind, Wexler turned slowly. Nothing there. Then the static erupted again, deep and full of distortion. From every speaker at once, one word repeated. Merge. Then the body in the chair inhaled. A ragged wet breath, the first in what may have been days. Its mouth moved, and then speaking in Benton's voice. Please, I tried to reroute. I didn't know they were listening. The real Benton backed away from the chair. That's not me. That's not me. But the mouth moved again. They built it to map the subconscious. Roots of memory. The GPS was only the delivery system. What system? Wexler whispered. The voice in the chair twitched. It needed minds that wouldn't resist. People who obey directions. People who trust machines. That's how it finds doors. Wexler's mouth went dry. Doors to what? To them. Suddenly all the monitors turned to static. Then each one began flashing images, blurring faces, strange roads, coordinates that made no sense. Overlapping, repeating. Then one word on every screen. Recalculating. The walls of the chamber shook, the light dimmed. The chair began to lower into the floor, slowly disappearing with the figure still strapped in it. The monitors went dark, and a new passage opened behind them, this one, a tunnel with walls made of living roots and wet stone pulsing like veins. From deep within it they heard something calling. Not with words, but with memory. Wexler saw something impossible as he looked down the tunnel. His son, standing barefoot, holding a flashlight, smiling the way he had the morning before the accident. But his son had died 2 years ago. And Benton saw someone too. His sister. Long vanished, holding out her hand, face frozen in the moment before she drowned. Wexler whispered, "It's not real." I know Benton said, but neither of them could move. The hallucination smiled. The tunnel pulsed again. From behind them the vault door slammed shut. Then the GPS spoke one more time. Calm final. Continue on current path, you are almost home. The air in the tunnel was thick. Not humid. Not dry. Dense. Like it pushed back. Every step took more effort than the one before it, as though the tunnel resisted their presence. The ground wasn't quite stone, wasn't quite soil. It felt too soft, too warm. Pulsing almost. Alive. Wexler kept his flashlight aimed forward, though the beam seemed to dim the deeper they walked. The hallucinations, his son Benton's sister, hovered just out of reach, always a few steps ahead, always just turning the next bend. "We don't follow them," Wexler said. Benton didn't answer. He hadn't spoken in several minutes. Wexler grabbed his arm. "Hey, look at me. That's not your sister. That thing, whatever it is, it's using your grief like coordinates." Benton nodded faintly, but never looked away. "I know. But it's exactly how she looked, before she vanished. Same scar, same shirt. That's the point." The tunnel curved again. Another door waited. This one wasn't metal or concrete, it was wood. Old, weather-warped. A farmhouse door complete with chipped green paint and a rusty latch. A sign hung above it. "Wrong turn." Below that, scratched into the surface, nearly illegible. "No going back, keep your mind." Wexler reached for the latch, then froze. Behind the door he heard voices. Real ones, not whispers or memories. Dispatch chatter. Crackling radio calls, sirens in the distance. Static-laced voices saying Deputy Wexler, search perimeter, last known ping. It was the outside world. He looked at Benton. "They're trying to find us." Benton nodded slowly, "Then open it." Wexler threw the latch. The door creaked open, and light poured in. Blinding, sunlight, warm air, birds, trees. They stepped out onto a narrow road lined with pine. The road was familiar. Too familiar. It was the same road where Wexler had first found the silver Corolla. The same bend, the same trees. The car was even still there. Except, it wasn't the same. The paint was peeled, the windows cracked, moss growing up the tyres. It looked like it had been there for years. Benton walked slowly toward it. That's not possible. Inside the car sat the same purse, same shoe. But now there was a photo tucked into the passenger seat. A Polaroid. Wexler picked it up. It showed him and Benton standing in the GPS chamber. and behind them, clear and sharp now, was the same figure-tall eyeless mouth stretched open its hand on Benton's shoulder. Wexler turned to Benton, his throat tightening. "You felt it, didn't you?" Benton's eyes were glassy. "I don't know what I feel anymore." They stood in silence, the forest alive with summer wind. Then Wexler noticed something on the ground. A phone. Screen cracked. Still on. The GPS app was open, but the route had changed. It now read, "Final destination almost 2 miles ahead." Wexler picked it up. Signal bars were full. Battery 100%. No SIM card. He tried to power it off. It wouldn't shut down. It just vibrated once. Then again. Then again. Buzz, buzz, buzz. He threw it into the woods. It landed with a soft thud and immediately began speaking. "Turn right." Benton looked down the road. A small dirt path cut through the trees, a deer trail barely visible. No markers, no tyre tracks, but the GPS was insistent. "Turn right." Buzz, buzz, buzz. Benton turned to Wexler. "Do you feel it?" Wexler frowned. "Feel what?" "That we're already not real anymore." Wexler didn't answer. They both stood staring at the trail. Then Wexler took a step off the road, onto the path. His foot sank slightly into the soil, too soft, like stepping on old meat. He looked down. There were shoes buried in the dirt, half buried, hundreds of them, all pointing forward, all single shoes. He looked back at Benton. Benton's nose was bleeding. He didn't seem to notice. Wexler reached for him. "Don't follow it, not this time." But Benton shook his head. They always do. Then he walked down the path. Wexler watched for a few seconds, torn, then turned back toward the road. The Corolla was gone. So was the forest. So was the light. And the phone was in his hand again. The screen now read, "Remaining destination U." Behind him the woods erupted in a sound he had never heard before. Not a scream, not a growl, but something older. Like the world remembering what it had buried. Wexler ran, not toward the path, not toward the car that was gone now, but away. Away from the voice, away from the vibrating device clutched in his palm like it had fused to his skin. He didn't remember deciding to keep it, but there it was, buzzing, unrelenting. Every turn he took, the landscape shifted behind him. A road became a hallway. A field became a stairwell. The sky above blinked off on like a dying light bulb. He stopped to catch his breath beside a gnarled tree that hadn't been there before. His knees shook. The tree pulsed faintly, its bark warped like wrinkled skin. It breathed. He dropped the phone. He kept talking, rerouting, head south, estimated arrival unknown. Then for the first time it used a different voice. His own. Wexler's voice, distorted, slightly echoed from the speaker. "I shouldn't have left him. I shouldn't have left Benton." He crushed the device underfoot, stomping until the plastic snapped and the screen shattered. But the sound didn't stop. It came from the air now, from inside his own head. The environment was rewriting itself. The trail beneath him became tiles, linoleum, a hospital hallway, fluorescent lights humming overhead, distant intercom chatter. And then he saw her, Gillian Hartwell, alive, awake, standing barefoot in a hospital gown. She looked at him, not scared, not confused, just sad. "I wasn't the first," she said softly. "They've been testing this for years." Wexler's voice trembled. "What is this place?" She stepped closer. "It's not a place. It's a memory made real. A pattern. The GPS doesn't lead through roads, it leads through belief. That's the only way the doors open." Behind her a door appeared. Room 127. Gillian reached for it. Wexler stepped forward. No, wait. But she was gone. The hallway returned to forest. The path behind him now split 3 trails, each with a sign. Return. Continue. Forget. He closed his eyes. The sound of Benton's voice echoed from the leftmost trail. Wexler. "Help me." From the center, static, the pulse of the machine. From the right, silence, pure silence, and that's what scared him most. He chose the center, because answers lived at the heart of the storm. The trail opened into another chamber. Cylindrical, metallic, lit by blue light, a lab cold too clean. Dozens of pods lined the wall, inside each people, unmoving, eyes open, watching something that wasn't there. He stepped toward one. It was a child. The girl blinked once mechanically, then again. Wexler turned to a control panel in the center of the room. It showed a rotating wireframe globe, coordinates flashing in real time, and beside each one a status. Online, connected, pending exfil. A file folder sat beside the panel. He opened it. Inside, psychological profiles. Photos. His name, his face. Page 1, subject number 49, Wexler Colin, coping index ideal. Below that, trigger event injected, field anomaly simulation. His world had been inserted. His wife, his job, his entire sense of stability. It had been fabricated as part of a test. He turned to the pod nearest him. The girl's eyes began to leak tears. They slid upward. She was upside down. The pod was rotating. The machine had been feeding them a simulation with no up, no down, no exit, just routing. And then he saw it. Benton, inside the final pod, still breathing, but only barely. Wexler reached for the release. A sharp alarm blared. Lights turned red. A voice from the intercom. Unauthorized interruption. Extraction in process. Subject breach imminent. Benton's eyes flew open. Mouth wide, but no scream. Only one word. Run! The walls began to fold inward. Not collapse fold, like pages. Wexler backed away the control panel, sparking the air shimmering like heat. The pods blinked out one by one, vanishing like mirages. Benton's voice echoed once more, but not from the pod. From inside Wexler's mind, they're not sending us somewhere, they're pulling us back. The final screen remained on. It showed a new GPS route. One destination. Mindroot, Nexus Durm Kundhund. Then, arriving now, behind Wexler a doorway opened, pure white light, and a single figure stood in it. Not Benton, not Gillian. Himself. Colin Wexler, wearing the same uniform, only this version of him was smiling, and in his hand, a GPS device, buzzing. The other Wexler didn't move. He just stood there in the glow of that doorway, his doorway, as if he'd been waiting a long, long time. The smile wasn't human. Not quite. It sat too still on his face like it had been painted on. The eyes held no recognition, only calculation, and in his left hand the GPS buzzed. You have arrived. Wexler took a step back, pulse hammering. Who are you? The other Wexler tilted his head slightly, like a bird studying its reflection. Hewitt said, before deviation. Its voice was hollow, mechanical, not quite an echo and overlay, like something speaking through a borrowed shape. You followed the wrong signal, it continued, so he duplicated the acceptable version. Wexler's skin went cold. That's why the system knew our names, why it expected us. Because you were already here. The thing nodded, you resisted, he didn't. Benton. Of course. Benton, whose photo had been on the GPS files. Benton, who had hesitated in every hallway, whose voice had bled through the intercom before his own mouth could. You used him, Wexler said. The figure shrugged. He was compliant. We reward compliance. Wexler's voice dropped. And Gillian. Another pause. She found it on accident, but she refused full transfer. She wanted memory, so we gave her shadow. Wexler's stomach turned. You killed her. The figure's smile widened just slightly. Not killed, preserved, in format. Her pattern helped us refine the map. The GPS chirped again in its hand. Turn right. It raised its hand, pointing toward the door of white. You can return to your world, but only if your pattern aligns. Wexler stepped forward slowly. What happens if I don't align? You won't need to worry. And behind it, in the white light, something moved. Fast, almost liquid. Shapes tall, stretching spindly limbs, pulling themselves across the brightness like insects under glass. Dozens of them. They weren't inside the light. They were the light. And they were watching. Feeding. Wexler took another step back. The room behind him was folding again. The chamber where the pods had been was now gone flattened like paper. No way out. Just the door. And the copy. You can't run, the voice said, tone still flat. You're already uploaded. Wexler looked at the GPS in his hand, the real one. Cracked dead. But it flickered once. Then blinked. A new message. Redirect signal. A yes or no flashed. Wexler hesitated. Your thoughts will dissolve soon, the other Wexler said. The longer you hesitate, the more corrupted you become. Wexler clicked yes. The GPS went black, then glowed blue. A new sound rang out. Low. Subsonic. Not from the GPS, not from the room, but from beneath it. Like the belly of the earth had shifted. The white doorway behind the double flickered. The figure flinched. Then, for the first time, it blinked. You're not supposed to know how to do that, it said, voice glitching. Wexler gritted his teeth. Then let's find out what else I'm not supposed to know. He turned, and ran not toward the light, not toward the trail. He ran straight into the wall. It should have stopped him. But it didn't. He passed through. The air changed. He was in another corridor now, but different. Raw, industrial. Like the first bunker, but broken open. Exposed wires. Concrete that had been split by roots and time. Sirens began blaring above, and far down the hall screaming. Real human screaming. He sprinted toward it, turned a corner, and stopped dead. A room. Half lit. A gurney in the centre. Gillian Hartwell lay there. Eyes open. Alive. Breathing. She turned to him, barely able to lift her head. "They made me remember," she whispered. I remembered where it started. Wexler moved to her side. "Where?" She coughed. "Blood. It's not the GPS. That's just the trigger. The real map is behind the memory, and the memory is anchored. That's why they keep us close to the same loops, same people, same grief." "What anchors you?" Wexler asked. She turned her head weakly, pointing to the wall. There, carved into the cement with something sharp, were names. All the extracted. But at the very top, Colin Wexler, Encore Class. He staggered back. "They're not tracking you," Gillian whispered. "They're tracking through you. You're the signal." Suddenly, the GPS in his pocket, dead a moment ago, lit up one final time. But it didn't say rerouting. It simply said, "Transmission complete." The lights cut out. From the hallway behind him, dozens of footsteps. Not hurried, marching. Wexler's body locked in place. The sound of the footsteps behind him grew louder, synchronized steady wrong. Not the panicked thud of a rescue squad. No radios, no breath, just movement. As if whatever was coming didn't need lungs or language, just orders. He turned to Gillian, voice hoarse. "Can you move?" She shook her head once. "You have to go." "I'm not leaving you." Her eyes locked with his, hollow but human. "I'm not real anymore." The footsteps stopped, just beyond the hall. Silence like the pause before a curtain rises. Gillian raised her hand, trembling. "There's a switch, behind the wall panel, the anchor node. You destroy that, everything breaks loose. What happens to you?" She smiled faintly. "Maybe I'll forget. Maybe I'll wake up. Or maybe I just stop being a map." Wexler rushed to the panel. She pointed to a metallic sheet bolted unevenly to the wall. He tore at it with bloodied fingers until it came off. Beneath it, a complex tangle of wires, fused circuit boards, and a single small terminal still blinking blue. The screen read, "Unsure? ID Wexler. Uplink active. Status signal host." The door behind him creaked open. Wexler didn't look. He reached for the wires, then froze. A voice from the hallway, not one of the faceless doubles. "Benton." "I wouldn't do that," he said. Wexler turned eyes wide. Benton stood at the threshold. No wounds, no blood, uniform spotless, expression eerily calm. But it was him! At least, on the outside. Benton, Wexler asked softly. I was the man answered. "Now I'm something better, freed from conflict, no more questions, no more pain, just route." He stepped forward, slow, deliberate. "You break the anchor, you destroy the route. You strand everyone inside, every mind, every echo, including yours." Wexler's hand hovered over the terminal. Benton stopped, head tilting. "You don't know what will happen to your wife," he said. That hit hard, because Wexler had seen her too on the GPS screen, in the folder, in the hallucinations, and he didn't know what was real anymore. "Maybe she's already part of the signal," Benton continued. "Maybe she never existed outside of it." Wexler's voice broke. "Why us?" Benton smiled now, gentle, familiar. "You trusted the voice, that's all it ever took." Wexler closed his eyes. The hum of the anchor node pulsed in his bones. Behind him, Gillian whispered so faint it was almost thought. "Do it." Wexler yanked the wires. The screen blinked once. Then everything stopped. The hum, the lights, the air itself. Frozen. A beat of silence that stretched for seconds, maybe minutes. Then, collapse. The walls crumpled inward. The floor splintered like cracked glass. The hallway twisted sideways as if gravity had changed its mind. Benton's face rippled, then peeled back, revealing raw circuitry laced with pulsing flesh. His eyes melted, became static. He screamed, but no sound came. He dissolved like smoke. Gillian vanished in an instant, not with pain, but with release. And Wexler, he fell, downward, sideways, through walls of light and static and memory. Faces flickered by Gillian, his wife himself, but younger, older wrong. He saw towns rearranging themselves like puzzle pieces. He saw roads that led to nowhere, dead ends folding into infinite loops. He saw maps that pulsed like living tissue. And then stillness. He was lying in grass. Warm sun on his face. A tree overhead. Birds. Wind. No buzzing. No static. No voice in his head. He sat up slowly. The forest was ordinary. Behind him a single patrol car. Dusty, familiar. He looked down. In his palm a GPS. Powered off. Just plastic now. No signal. No battery. Just a device. He laughed a dry, stunned sound, then he cried. A car approached. Another cruiser. A woman stepped out. Deputy Angela Ruiz. Real, human, breathing hard. Wexler, she asked. Colin Wexler. He nodded slowly. "We've been looking for you for 3 days. His mouth trembled. "What day is it?" Sunday. We found your vehicle abandoned in Mingo Hollow. What happened? Wexler looked down at the GPS in his hand one last time. He opened the battery case and removed it. Then he threw it as far into the trees as he could. He stood up and said, "Next time I get lost, I'm asking for directions." The hospital room smelled like antiseptic and old leather. Rain tapped the window in soft intervals, the kind of pattern that might have lulled someone to sleep if not for the questions. Always the questions. Deputy Colin Wexler sat upright in the bed, the thick gauze still wound around his temple where he'd hit his head during the fall. Or so the doctors said. Mild dehydration, light head trauma, some confusion. 3 days missing in the woods, found without a scratch, at least not on the outside. He hadn't said much. Not at first, because the words weren't right. Not in this world. Dr. Haley Gordon, the department's trauma specialist, closed her notebook with a quiet snap. "You say there was a facility," she said gently. "Under the forest." Wexler nodded. "With people inside pods, machines mapping memories, a signal transmitted through GPS routes." Another nod. "And you believe it was dismantled when you destroyed the anchor?" This time Wexler looked away. The rain kept falling. "Colin," she said, "there was no facility. Not there. We checked every coordinate you gave us. Mingo Hollow hasn't had underground structures since the 1940s. Nothing deeper than a power line." Wexler's jaw tensed. "It's not physical. Not really. It exists where we believe it exists. That's how it routes." She paused. "Then how did you come back?" Wexler looked down at his hands. "The anchor wasn't just a node. It was me. I broke the signal by refusing the route. I stopped trusting the voice." A long silence. Dr. Gordon finally closed her file and stood. "I'm going to recommend some time off," she said. "But I don't think you're crazy." Wexler looked up. "You don't?" She smiled faintly. "No, because last year we had a case. A woman nurse from Roanoke. Vanished off Route 43. The last text she sent said, 'This GPS is taking me through the middle of nowhere, LOL. Sound familiar? He didn't respond. She left the room quietly. Later that evening he was discharged. No press, no interviews, just quiet. The hospital let him walk home. And the air was good real, maybe. He took the long way back through town, past the same corner diner, the same hardware store, the same familiar cracks in the sidewalk. And yet, something was off. A billboard he'd never seen before, a mailbox on the wrong side of the road. The neighbour's dog, same colour, same bark, but the wrong name tag. Wexler paused at a traffic light. In his pocket, his new phone buzzed. A notification. Suggested route home available, tapped to begin. He froze, watched the screen pulse. The interface looked standard. Too standard. He hit power. Screen stayed on. He removed the battery. The phone buzzed again. Screen still lit. The same words. Suggested route home available. His fingers trembled. Then he walked calmly to the nearest storm drain and dropped the phone into the dark. No GPS. No more routes. Just streets. Just signs. Just human uncertainty. Behind him a car rolled by slowly. An Uber. Its destination tag blinked on the dash. Colin Wexler, 0.2 miles to destination. But there was no driver, only the dashboard lit up, and a calm voice from within the car. In 400 feet, turn left. He didn't look back. He walked the opposite way, toward the only thing he could trust anymore. His own 2 feet. If this story haunted you like it haunted him, subscribe for more chilling true crime tales. And whatever you do, don't always follow the voice. Share the story, stay awake, stay human.